ignore the football game last night.
Right.
We just have a few rules for this panel. I hope everybody is in here to talk about Ironheart, or everybody who comes in here wants to talk about Ironheart. Because we're going to talk about Ironheart today. A few rules: respect each other at all times. We argue opinions, not people. One person speaks at a time. I can't hear if a lot of voices go on, so I just stare until people all stop talking. Other people may also want to turn to speak or ask questions or reflect. If somebody is around you who wants to speak and they haven't spoken yet, I'm going to ask them to speak before somebody who has repeat questions. Sharing your opinion is valuable. Pontification is not. Put that out there. So let's go ahead and go down. If everybody who is sitting up would introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Yvonne McDowell. I am a professor of media studies at Georgia State University. My focus is primarily in entertainment law, but I also do teach a course in pop culture and race studies.
Y'all got some really cool jobs. My name is Robyn. I am based out of the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina. I am one of the administrators of Color Fandom. We are a social club. We're open to everyone, but we exist primarily as a safe space for people with marginalized identities, whether that be disability, queer, people of color, to talk about how their identity intersects with their fandom and informs their fandom, and vice versa.
Hey guys, my name is Michael Collins. I am a theory prognosticator and dad joke enthusiast for the Fandom Hybrid podcast. I have the least cool job up here, so I'm not going to tell you what I do. We do Marvel, fantasy, and con culture podcasts.
Okay, let's jump in. I feel like I'm just going to yell because I don't know that I can't hear myself coming back. So here's just the first question. Who is Riri? Who is she supposed to be?
So I feel like Riri is supposed to be, well, I remember when her character was first introduced and there was kind of like this backlash against, well, first of all, the backlash against derivative characters, the backlash against like the very smart label, and the pushback against, admittedly, a young Black girl from an inner city being labeled as a genius. But I feel like they're trying to create characters that are not just diverse in terms of things that we generally think of, like people of color and different things like that, but also like just different backgrounds, you know what I mean? Like just tell different stories of people existing in different spaces in this universe that you're trying to expand. Because no offense, but like, are we gonna get like 8 characters that are all like super rich white guys? Like, even if it's just like someone who like grew up on a farm like we have, or something like that, just like have the ability to tell different stories from different perspectives. Or even if you're retelling the same story from a different perspective, you have to be able to embody that in a different character, in a new character. So I feel like that was what the push was. And then also when the character was created, I feel like Marvel was trying to like reach a teenage demographic. So to try to have like new characters that kind of embodied like a younger generation, you know. So yeah, Peter Parker is a teenager, but he's a teenager that was created in the 60s, and we've seen him over and over and over again. So I feel like they tried to inject like some freshness, some new characters. And unfortunately, with the way fandom can be, that doesn't always land well, even though I think that, personally, I think it's nice and it's needed, but.
Yeah, I think that she's an example of when you have, they say, they're showing her being brilliant and being extremely smart, but it also shows what it kind of cost her in a way. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it shows that if you think some things that you want, you're going to have to give something up in order to keep it. But Riri is like, there's so many people like her that want to have these things as far as like backing and things like that, and they don't have it, but they want to do it who have their own rules. But so this shows like how she can do it, how she chose to do it as far as getting things in order to make things that she wanted to make. But she was willing to accept whatever cost it was because she wants to do it.
I see my students a lot in Riri. I teach at a university that serves a lot of students who are first generation college students who are sort of, this is their goal and they're sort of like striving for it, but they may not know always exactly how to get there. So to see a character from that perspective on screen, I understand her background, right? This is a girl who has everything going that she should be able to get it, but she's never been given the way to get there. And so that is sort of who I view her as, that student who is trying to gain access to something that has always been denied her, despite the fact that she's even more capable than people who've always had access to it.
Yeah. And I think what you were pointing out about the comparison to like your students being first generation, and like you were saying with the things that it cost them, having the ability doesn't always mean that you have the means. And so I think the brilliant thing that her character does is it shows that like when you don't have an example ahead of you to show you the course correction, because she definitely has a community of people that love her, but the things that her brilliance allows her to aspire to, she doesn't have the background within her community to kind of pave the way for her. And she makes that point a lot, where it's kind of like, okay, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources. So when she gets into these spaces, you know, there's like an expectation of her to move through these worlds a certain way, but she's never had a person in her life, you know, she has her stepfather who was, you know, a builder, and like she is a builder, but building on that level with those resources and the access to the technology and the funding, she didn't have that. And so like trying to carve that out, to me, shows an interesting and new way to expose that story.
Speaking of sort of grounding, how was the city a part of the story and her community?
Well, you can see it when she comes back. It's like when she was at MIT, they saw her differently. They saw her as being really smart and somebody who is building things that are like revolutionary. But then when she steps outside of their rules, they were like, okay, we're cutting you off. You have to go back home. When she got back home, it was just family. There wasn't anybody thinking that she was better or worse than anyone else. They saw her as being just Riri. They didn't see her as Riri Williams, the incredibly smart scientist. They just said, oh, that's Riri. Yeah, she knows how to build things. It's like even her best friend was just like, hey, I got a mixtape for you, you know. He really was just trying to reintegrate her back into her familiar background and show her that she's not in the same, she's back among friends instead of being somewhere where she has to constantly be on guard and challenge and be smart. Like you can just chill for a second.
Yeah. I also liked that like when she went back and her community is just like clowning her and things like that, because like that's the way that they show like love and connection. Even though she's separated from them and apart, she's still a part of that community and she still belongs there. So I grew up in inner city Baltimore, and going away for school, going into different spaces, and then coming back home where like the people there, even though they aren't able to move through those spaces for whatever reason, you know what I mean? Someone decides they're gonna tap you and say like, okay, I'm gonna extract you from this space and provide this opportunity just for you, not for the people around you, but then you still have to go back into those spaces and into those environments. And I know everyone's experience is different, but seeing the reflection of coming back home and still having that, a different kind of support. You know what I mean? Like the emotional support is the thing that they can give her. The cheerleading support is the thing that they can give her. I always think about that, like when I went back home. So I'm from Baltimore, and so it's like, you guys know the reputation of Baltimore, but just feeling that my community just believed in me, you know what I mean? Just moving through there and having like the person on the street corner say like, hey, you still doing good in school, blah blah blah, you know what I mean, like those kinds of things, you know, I felt that reflected in the way her community, you know, joking around with her, like their love language is to like basically clown on her kind of thing, but still recognize her brilliance. So I love that about it.
I was just gonna say, Southside Chicago, ask me how. I recognize so many of the shots, literally my neighborhood.
I was gonna say at MIT, Riri was a student, she was a scientist, right? In Chicago, she's a person. And I think that allowed, seeing her family around her, seeing everything else around her, she becomes more than just this girl who can build stuff or do my homework. She's this person who I've lived with my whole life and who I understand. And so I think that, and the way they sort of explored the city, even her on the train with that giant robot suit, it sort of, it became, the city sort of became part of the story. Like, she doesn't have a car, she had to let that stuff on the train. And I thought that.
Or pay Landon $20.
Or pay $20 for that.
Yeah, I think that the L is different from the subway, is different from the metro, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that all has flavor.
I wanted to say, I guess, no, like Riri, I look at her as a kind of a conglomerate or a comparison to Tony Stark and Riri Williams, in a way. Tony Stark, she felt like she was invincible for a while at MIT and everything. Same with Tony Stark. Riri Williams, she's very smart, can think outside the box for a lot of things. I also want to say with the whole city thing, I felt like it was a small stereotype because inner city black person in Chicago. Typical story. I mean, although it'd be more of a stereotype if it was New York. So I see like with the city, they kind of wanted to kind of say she's inner city. She didn't have much to go back to. She went back to the same group of people that were clowning her. Granted, yes, it is a love language, but I know like when like a lot of people when they go back home, they're like, oh, you made it out, huh? And they start clowning on you and all that. So it's kind of like a little bit of a stereotype I kind of took from that. But
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that everyone's experience is different, and I look at it as not that she doesn't have anything when she goes back, but like you said, like going back to that community, and it's kind of like a give and take, you know what I mean? It depends on what other types of factors are put in front of you as you're going through those experiences, and also what you're putting back into the community in terms of how you move through those spaces. So yeah, for all of us that come through those backgrounds, we have like such vastly, you know, different experiences. Because one of the things that I think about a lot is how much potential is in those spaces, but because like they've created, like society has created this, you know, myth of like the exceptional child. And granted, Riri was a very exceptional child, not just like, oh, the average like AP, you know, honor student kind of thing, but an exceptional child. But a lot of times, you know, what makes the difference between someone who can get out and someone who doesn't is because someone decided that they're gonna pull them out of that environment. You know what I mean? But they still are a product of that environment.
I mean, if you think about the comparison you're making, so Tony Stark, money, Shuri, money, connections, resources, right? She didn't, nobody pulled her, left her, nobody kept her pulled out, which is a weird phrase to say. But that was the piece that she was like, I don't have these resources because nobody is continuing to give me these resources. And so then what do? It's, you're back in the community, but it is because you don't have a sponsor. How does that even feel?
Yeah.
And she's used to having to make it work. It's like, it's not like, she can't just go down and get like these materials. It's like she has to get the best materials that she can and make it work. And she's been able to do that. So she, to her detriment, she thinks that she can do that with everything. And she finds out that there's more and more to it than just getting some zip ties and baling wire and tying it together and making it work, because there also has to be other things involved to make it go.
I feel also that throughout the show, she's starting to see, you know, when she was pegged as like that exceptional child and resources were put in front of her, you know, she was able to see, and what those resources could buy you. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of times people are a huge part of what makes a person's lived experience is their circumstances and the opportunities that are put in front of them. So with her being at MIT, you know, she knows that these things will work and they can work. And then when she goes back home, she's dealing with not just, you know, her abilities, but also the emotional toll of what she's trying to get through at that time. So the circumstances for her at that point are different, because when she's at school, she's trying to prove herself. When she's at home, she feels this desperation to have to get these things done and trying to figure out other ways to make a way. And then that ends up kind of being like the premise for the show, because she knows that these things are possible, and just that kind of like desperation, like you said, like beating her head against the wall, like, if only I had this thing, I could make this work. Let me try to figure out, like, okay, the duct tape didn't work, now let me try the zip ties, like you said.
Yeah, I think like if you're used to a 5-star kitchen and someone puts you into an apartment with just a stove and a microwave, even if you're a top chef, you have to sort of learn how to work it and make it work again.
Right.
So Riri had to sort of take all these skills she known when she had everything at her disposal, and sort of bring it back to, okay, now what can I do? And not only does she have to do it, but she also has got to consider the plot that's in front of her. I have to do it, or all these people I love are gonna die, or in that situation.
And she had to do it 2 different times, like
Yeah.
one time in Wakanda, then one time in MIT, which is technically a step down from Wakanda. So she's basically kind of stair-step down back to reality.
Making decisions based on resources or lack thereof. There are obviously some bad guys in this scenario. How many good guys are actually in this show?
That's the question of the year.
Natalie.
Her mom?
Natalie.
Her
Yeah, her
family.
mom. Yeah.
And her friend.
And the
other
Zay,
guy.
Zay, yeah.
Zay.
Selma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do all
You don't think Zelma was a good person?
No, I think she was a neutral person. She was doing what she wanted, right? She was interested in magic, she was interested in helping, but she was like, well, we're gonna make a deal, we're gonna do something. I'll do it, it's fun.
But she did she told Riri up front, she was like, you know, there's gonna be a cost to this, and basically let her make the choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because ultimately, like, Riri had to decide whether or not this was something that she wanted. But yeah, from her perspective too, she's like, her mom didn't let her go to school, so she's like, well, you have to make a decision, but if you make a decision, I get to learn some things too. So.
Right, yeah.
What do those people all have in common too? Like, if the powered people or the people who have the most resources are all acting on a gray side, and so we say that the people who are good, quote unquote, are all not powered. They're all normal people. What does that mean?
I think that's another reason why Riri was so freaked out, because she knew that the people that she wanted to protect didn't have the powers, they didn't have the resources. And the thing that she could provide is, like, she could try to use her intelligence to try to provide a way for them. And so you can see in some of the episodes where she starts to, like, have panic attacks, because this has such dire consequences for her now. So I think that was why what we saw play out throughout the show.
Having those people be not having power, I think they Riri more weight. Like, she was like, okay, I have to protect them. Whereas I think that sort of having the morally great people sort of have powers. It allowed her to sort of, because she told that line, she doesn't have powers, but she has this brain where she can build something that gives her powers. So she is the one who's sort of on that line, because people with powers tend to be more on the darker side of things. So watching her balance between my real life, these people I care about, and these powers that are going to drive me to this darker place, I think was sort of interesting.
Yeah, I think that really is weird, because everyone that Riri comes in contact with, like, something happens. Like with Ezekiel was just trying to live his life, and then next thing you know, she exposes him, and he ends up becoming who he becomes. And it's like, even Zelma, she put Zelma in the path of Parker. She puts him in his path because to get his power back, because in the green credit scene, he goes into her shop and gets her and tries to make a deal with her and no good is gonna come of that. Like none. To dealing with him. So
Wait, a new show?
I mean, yeah, a good new show, but not really a good thing for Selma to be involved with him, because she's already dabbling in things that are kind of over her pay grade. Like when she turned everything around into the underworld, where I can't remember what it's called.
She created a little nook for herself in a
Basically a
parallel
little pocket,
plane.
yeah, parallel plane. It's like her mother was like, when'd you learn this? She's like, oh, I'm like, see, she's already meddling with things that she doesn't have any business meddling in. And the more she gets into that, she already knows it has a cost. So it's like she knows what she's doing, and she's going to experience that later on.
Well, I take a different kind of perspective on that, because like technically she is a magic user, so that is her space. She does have business being in there, and so for her mother's personal reasons, she chose to pull her out of that space and like not provide somewhere else for her to learn. And I mean, she's curious, she's a young person. I feel like that's realistic. If you have these kids who have these abilities and they're curious and they want to learn, they want to be able to explore their own world, and when you tell them no, they're gonna try to try to skirt the rules. Because she even said that when her mom was like, I told you not to do that, and she's like, well, you told me not to do A. I did A-2. Right. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like she had the business and she had the resources, but to me that also showed a great example of like family dynamics and what it means when, you know, all of the things don't just fall into place as you would want them to. Because she said, like, if you had let me be trained in this other place, then I could have had different skills, different abilities. So this is what you're gonna get, because I'm gonna do it on my own.
Yeah, but would Carmitage have really been that much better?
But from a storytelling perspective, I don't know if that's necessarily for us to decide. That is what Zelma's choice was, and what she has the ability.
Yeah.
There needs to be a way for her to be able to practice that and to try that, because she's a precocious teenager. She wants to be able to learn, and so that's where the story comes out. You know what I mean? Like, if you tell her you're not gonna make a way, then she's gonna make a way.
Right.
I think that kind of parallels with Riri too. Like, if she didn't have access to MIT, then she would have still been in that garage fucking around doing what she could in that situation. So being young means sort of trying to figure out everything, whether your mother wants you to or not.
I mean, she did make that first suit like before she went to MIT.
Yeah.
And I was, as you were talking about Zelma, I was thinking of what you were saying about how that parallels Riri, in the sense that, you know, Zelma wants this and she didn't have the resources, didn't have the outlet that, you know, other people would have had, so she made her own way. And so then Riri does very similarly. She is like, okay, she had MIT, she had Wakanda, she had MIT, and then when those resources, she figured out, you know what, I'm gonna make my own way too. And I find it very interesting that those characters have parallel stories going on at the same time.
I'm gonna echo as it goes. It's a constant theme throughout all the characters. They all don't have opportunity or resources, and they break the rules to get what they want, or to at least use the abilities that they have.
Yeah.
Right? They have the drive and they have the intelligence or the skills, but they don't always have the opportunities, so they make their opportunities. For all the characters.
So, I don't know if you agree or don't agree, but I saw the whole show as Riri's villain origin story. This is how she becomes a villain, and it's all as a result of, like, we wanted her to learn, to lean on others, to form a team, to rely on her family and friends, and we got that towards the end, and you think that she's gonna make the right decision with Mephisto at the end, but she chooses the wrong path, right? This whole show is about her accepting Natalie's and her stepfather's death, and with all those scenes we got with her processing the memories and leaning on her mom and her friends, right? You think she's made that character arc, and she's like, yes, I'm at peace with their deaths, and I don't want to try to bring them back because that's unrealistic and unnatural, and there's consequences. And in the end, it seems like she's still like thinks that she can outwit Mephisto or something. She still has that hubris, that pride, where she thinks, I alone can be not like Parker. I can outwit this guy. I can be stronger than this guy, and I'm gonna get what I want, which is Natalie back, and somehow everything will be fine. Like she doesn't learn the lesson. So I don't know if she is a villain going forward, or if she can be redeemed, or what. But she's a villain.
So I didn't see that as her villain origin story. I saw this as her tragic hero origin story. Like a lot of times, and I feel like a thread that maybe people didn't pick up on, because she has kind of like, she presents as like this swagger and this confidence, but she is struggling emotionally so desperately. And I think people discount the decisions that people make, that they know they are the wrong decisions when they are hurting emotionally. I didn't personally take it as she thought she could outwit Mephisto, but more so that she was so desperate to have the things that she was craving in her life from an emotional standpoint, that she would just deal with the consequences later. I've come across individuals, and myself as well, where you are just going through so much. You know this is the wrong decision, but you cannot handle the right decision right now. You will figure out what you need to do to get through this moment, and you will deal with the consequences later. And that's how I looked at her decision in that moment, because I feel like there were times where you could see that she didn't want to do this, but she felt backed up against a wall, and the different panic attacks, the different ways that she interacted with Natalie, the things that happened to her when she had her back and then lost her. I think that the piece of her where she's like, okay, I'm just gonna let everything fall on the floor and deal with the consequences later. Maybe if we get a season 2, those will be like the consequences of later. And then she's gonna come back and realize like, okay, well, me just making all these decisions, now I've gotta pay the piper. And then she's gonna realize, okay, I need to address my mental health. I need to address, some of the ways that I've been going headfirst into these things. And that's gonna be her character growth. That's what I kind of see that as.
And once, go ahead.
I was gonna say, the thing about grief, especially when you lose someone you love so young, is that you do take those chances. You do take those risks. If someone can say, here's your best friend back, you can have him. You might say, okay, I can handle this. My soul, I'm not gonna die for a very long time. Right now, I want my friend back. And so, I don't know if it makes her a villain or if it makes her 22. And when you are young, you tend to sort of do things without necessarily seeing those consequences far ahead.
Also, when she wished Natalie back, she wasn't really wishing the person Natalie back. She just wanted her AI back. Like, you gotta remember, like right in the episode, penultimate episode, when she made the final Iron Suit, she lost her Natalie AI. So I think that Mephisto did outsmart her, because he knew that she still loved Natalie. And again, this is Marvel showing the many different ways that people deal with grief. Is what they've been doing since Endgame. Like, almost every show and movie that's come out has shown how people deal with grief differently, either to their detriment or positively to them. And when Mephisto offered that, she was just in the moment. She probably didn't even really she hasn't. Throughout the series, we see that she hasn't properly mourned her father or Natalie, because the mixtape almost destroyed her, and every time she sees her, she can't deal with the sight of her, basically being in front of her. So Mephisto really was trying to. He's still Mephisto. He was like, oh, you want your AI, but you want Natalie. Oh, the periods in between the letters? Oh, I thought you meant just the name. Oh, my fault. But yeah, here's your friend. And it's like the confusion and almost heartbreak when Natalie was like, when she tried to get Natalie to run diagnostics, and she was like, what are you talking about? It's like, you could see she was like relieved, but then also, oh, yeah. What have I done?
Yeah, because she even said like, how are you touching me? Yeah, she was expecting it to be the AI.
Mm-hmm. I would say, okay, 1, 2, 3. I would say that, just to toss in, I think she learned a different lesson, right? I think that the lesson comes from the background as well. Because we think about people making righteous, courageous choices that we lean into because that's good, but that doesn't explain anything else. That doesn't explain away her grief. That doesn't explain away her fear. She still knows that her community is very vulnerable, even more so now. So to say, well, she made the right choice, that's because we think it could be the right choice, but it doesn't solve any of her problems. So her lesson from that is that the space I'm in now requires different motivations and different support, I think.
Yeah, I take it as it humanizes her. Like you exactly said what I was thinking or what I was gonna say, but it humanizes her. Like I think of it as, imagine yourself in that scenario. Like let's say if someone really close, your mother, your grandmother, brother, sister, whoever died, and someone comes up to you and says, I could bring them back for you. Normally, as people, we would take that sometimes. Some people might not, but majority of the people will go and say, oh, I can have my mom back, and all I have to do is sign on the dotted line, sure, and then deal with that later. Kind of humanizes her more so than villainizes her. Again, I love the difference in opinion, but yeah, just like, I just took it as it humanized her more. It was not like someone who's like Superman who always makes the right decision and can always do whatever and everyone claps him and leaves. It just kind of says he's a human. He's a person, not a god or anything like that.
I was just gonna add to that point. I was like, I remember when I was typing a friend about the show, and I was like, this show could have been called "How to Make Your Own Villains." So I feel like she's not so much the villain herself. It's just that all of her choices are just, you know, for good or bad. They're sort of all creating this situation around her. But the point I actually wanted to make was about, you know, this whole thing now with Natalie coming back and Miss Bisto. I feel like when Zelma told her magic has consequences, yes, the consequence was losing her AI, which was bad. But now that she's got this thing, her friend back with Mephisto, what is going to be the consequence of this magic? I feel like that's season 2.
Yeah.
You know, it could be, I mean, losing your AI and then losing again this person, if that's, I mean, that's gonna be really interesting. And can she overcome that a second time?
So, was touching back on her comment, and you guys kind of went through the thoughts that I was having, but she makes these choices based off of her grief. She's, you know, we see the starting of her grieving process, because for the most part of the beginning, she's completely ignored the grief and mourned her stepfather. She hasn't dealt with it at all. And so she doesn't actually start the process at all until we actually see her in the show. And I don't think that, you know, when she's accepted that her father's gone and her Natalie's gone, I don't think she actually did. I don't think that, no, I think that she's still full blown in the PTSD grief section. So that moment where, you know, you want her to make the right choice. I was watching, I was like, don't do it, girl, you know, but I knew she was going to, because she had not dealt with her grief. She had not dealt with the PTSD that can come from that. And it makes you make choices that ultimately, you know what, I'll deal with that later. Because that's and I think that this is really great because, you know, you watched Tony Stark's Iron Man, you know, he had a whole deal with his PTSD as well. And I really like how Marvel is dealing with some of these mental health issues. And I think that they're doing this in a very genuine way. And I feel it also makes it more relatable, because we can watch this and go, you know what, I had a time in my life where I felt that too. And I think that is the difference between DC and Marvel, is that Marvel, we feel the heroes / villains / anti-heroes are more relatable, because they deal with those issues that we kind of see on an everyday basis. They make the decisions that we want to say, no, I would never make that decision. But kind of in the back of our heads are going, you know, I might if the circumstances were there, I might make that same decision as well, going off the same thing that he's saying there.
We're all just one bad decision away, one bad day away from making a really bad decision.
Speaking of villains in general, I think maybe besides the Hood and that guy that worked under him, who he counts less because he's dead now, but still. Besides the two of them, I don't think anyone in the show was like really a villain. I think the crew that worked under him was supposed to show us, this is the kind of life you're gonna lead if you don't have those resources or opportunities. Like, Riri ended up with them because she got kicked out of MIT. And now that she doesn't have those kind of resources, this is what she's gonna turn into. She's gonna end up like Slug and like Clown, and potentially Zelma could end up like that too, because without opportunities and stuff, they're just extremely talented young people that are gonna practice their craft no matter what. So for them, with no way to practice it in a good way, people are gonna hire them to do jobs as criminals and stuff, and that's how they're gonna get to experiment and make their personal art.
Yeah, 100%, exactly. And honestly, to me, they were more interesting villains than the Hood. I know we needed to have the Hood in order, you know, for the magic component to come into it, but for those very reasons,
They were just so stylish.
I
They were
wanna
so
show about
stylish.
Yes. I love Clown, and I would love to see maybe like, you know how Marvel does like these little maybe shorts of like 10 or 15 minutes, like the in-betweens. Like if because they got on the elevator together, they left together, and Clown turns to Hood and said, I thought this was family. So when they got on the elevator, I felt that they still saw themselves as family, the four of them. So I can 100% believe that they're gonna stick together. They're gonna just figure out a new way to still do the things that they're doing, and they're gonna almost even fall deeper into a connection with themselves, because they probably feel betrayed by what the Hood did, because they saw themselves as family. So I would love if we had like some shorts of them like just doing like random heists throughout like Chicago.
Marvel one shots. They've done them before.
Exactly.
One shots
Yeah,
here,
give us
okay?
like a short series of one shots of them just doing like some weird stuff. Even if they became kind of like, you know, sometimes like the heroes will work. They can be like anti-heroes where like something goes down and Riri's like, God damn it, I need an explosive expert. Like, Slug, tell me you're not robbing somebody right now. Okay,
Right.
Clown, I need you to blow some stuff up for me. What are y'all doing?
It's like a
Just don't tell
small,
nobody.
it's like a small version of the Thunderbolts, like how they are in the comic book, like they have just like a group of people with a specific set of skills that just handle things like off the books, and they can't be some people that you can easily disavow their actions and say like, I don't know what those people are.
Yeah.
I was just going to, I didn't want to bring the conversation back to Ruby's decision at the end, but not just outside of grief and PTSD, but anxiety gives you a hyper focus on whatever the problem is that's giving you the anxiety. In order for you to feel that relief, you don't think about anything outside of the thing that's causing you the most anxiety. So I just wanted to like throw that in there as well. It's just, you see it throughout the show. Whenever she's trying to solve the problem, she has hyper focus on whether it was creating the skin, getting the skin, and whatever decision she needs to make with Ezekiel to convince him to, or manipulate him to get that done.
Yeah.
So it's on track with like when she wants to do something, or she hyper focuses on how can I get the result that I want.
Yeah. I thought the show did a really good job with sort of showing anxiety on screen. A lot of shows don't. It's like, all right, well, I'm panicking now. But like sort of seeing the focus, like as someone with anxiety, I absolutely saw how she sort of dealt with it. So yeah, you're right. The hyper focus on the situation was something.
Because it gives your mind something else to think about. Kind of going back to your point where it was like, okay, she didn't deal with that grief in all that time because she just kept moving from like one project to the next and just hyper focusing on that because she didn't have to think about it. Like when my friend was killed in a car accident, my manager asked me, do you want to go home? And I was like, if I go home, it will be so much worse. I need something to do. I need somewhere to be. I need a distraction. If I go home, I'm gonna sit in a corner and cry all day. I need to be here.
Yeah, if Riri wasn't in MIT, all she would be doing is sitting, worrying about like crying over her friend and crying over her stepdad. And even though she had like other things, like she made her rudimentary suit first, it's still like there are those moments where she is sitting and it hits you and it hits her and it's like, then it's over with.
Can we do a crossover and send her to Sam real quick?
That's the one person that can
Yeah.
actually help
Yeah.
her. That can,
I mean, they got the War Machine connection. So like Riri and War Machine are both like in the Iron family, and then War Machine and Sam are both in the military. So like,
Oh, I love it.
I mean, they
love
might as well do that as like a version of Armor Wars. I mean, we didn't get Armor
yeah,
Wars.
because if something happens and Riri and Brody end up like butting heads, then Riri could just like snatch her little behind up and be like, I got somebody you need to talk to, and then just like take her over to
Right.
Sam, like, Sam, get her straight.
I think that's another piece of it in the playing out of everything, that it was very clear that she had PTSD. It was very clear that she was suffering from active symptoms all of the time, but we don't have the opportunity to see anybody try to get her help. And I don't know if that was a resource issue. I don't know if it was a cultural issue, let's be honest. I don't know if it was a community issue. What were the access points? And how could we have seen that play out for good in a way, to demonstrate that these are things you can do?
Yeah, she had that weird conversation with her mom where her mom was like, why won't you let me help you? Like, not everybody has a power, but that doesn't mean that they don't have abilities. And she kind of says, you want me to handle it the way that you would want me to. And yeah, because her mom wants her to deal with her grief, and she won't. And then she's like, don't you step in that iron suit. And she steps back because for her, she doesn't feel like that's the answer. And that's kind of going to be part of her like tragic hero origin story, where she realizes like, okay, maybe my mom did have something valid to say. I can't solve every problem with, with tech. I can't solve every problem. I can't science away my grief. I can't science away my anxiety.
Or I can't be like Stain and build it away or put it in a silo away.
Exactly.
I think it's a little bit of everything that you said, because despite the strides that have been made in the Black community, going to get help for psychiatric things is still kind of taboo, like, or it's something where they're like, you don't need that, you just need to get over it. And there's still a culture of that in the Black community, where they're like, well, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want you to talk about it. They don't want you to go get help. They just want you to get over it, because there's stuff to do. You got to get back up there and get going, because if you stop, you'll get stuck. So you got to keep going.
Yeah, and also that in itself as well comes back to like a resource question, because a lot of times going to therapy, it takes money, it takes time. To go to an appointment is not just that hour that you're sitting there. You got to take off work. You got to get yourself there. So it's like a resource, and it's a type of support. So being able to do that and then coming back across to someone else who has the same problems, who maybe even wants to have somebody to talk to, but they can't. So they respond in a way, and it's not good, admittedly, but it's understandable, where they're like, oh, must be nice. You can just take off work. You can just go down. Oh, you got the money for a therapist? Oh, how about giving me $20 for these groceries? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they're thinking about those other things. So I agree 100%. But again, it comes back to the resources as well, a lot of times.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I have another comment, but on to what we're talking about now. Also goes back to culturally, like as a Black woman, we're always looked up to be strong, and we keep stuff in. And she wasn't trying, she was like, I can do this myself. She wasn't trying to tell, everybody that, what she was going through. She even like left, when she was trying to, and now the AI, and she had to get out of that and get out of the suit, and and deal with her panic attack. So we try traditionally deal with our stuff ourselves.
Yeah.
But what was my original comment was going back to villain origin stories, and I see like Joe's story. I mean, like Riri can can come back, but like I see like Joe, that was like his villain origin story.
It's his own fault.
It is. I'm just saying, he tried not to be like his dad.
Yeah. That hurt my feelings too, because I love an odd couple friendship. Like that is one of the tropes in fiction that I love so much. So like that odd couple friendship, I loved it.
I was gonna say, like, I guess about going on with the whole, like, not dealing with therapy. I mean, it could be a culture thing as well. I know me being Jamaicans are like advocate of not dealing with it.
Island people.
Be strong, yes. Feel like be strong, deal with it. Just go back to work. Life doesn't stop. Just shove it down. But in Riri's standpoint, I don't think it's any of that. I think it's pride. She's very prideful. She doesn't want to say like, I want to take help from somebody. She's like, I want to do it myself. I want to figure it out myself. I want to solve it myself, and I want to say I did this on myself, which is great. But then it's a double-edged sword because it does hurt you in the long run because you start making decisions that don't work towards your favor. Because you can see her mom is begging her, please just sit down and deal with it. Sit down and deal with it. She's like, no, I'm going to deal with it the way I want. That's how you want to do it. I'm going to do it my way. So I think that was a big pride thing that she had.
Yeah, valid.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, in terms of resources that she had, the school also should have been a resource for her. Like, especially a school that is that prestigious and large should have been heavily invested.
And they have a really large counseling center?
Yes.
But I'm sure she refused to go.
Yeah.
There might have been like a scene, I don't remember, where they might have tried to say something and she didn't accept it, but like the school should have been a huge resource. If you're starting to fail out of a program like that, multiple people should be like, what's going on with you? What do you need help with?
I'm sure Riri probably put on a mask at school of I'm fine, and it can be really hard to sort of break down that mask because she is at MIT alone, so she's gonna build herself up and say, I'm fine. All I gotta do is go to class. I can make my own money. I can do this, and if you do that, then the school doesn't know to look your way. And so I think that might have been one concern with not getting access at MIT.
I think that point goes back to the hyper-focus thing too, because that's all she was focused on was getting what she needed to get done, and all the other stuff was just pushed aside. But one question I wanted to ask to this panel in particular, what did you think about, and I kind of just thought about that, the aspect of there was no mention of church as a resource in this entire series. As again, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Some of those opening shots in the first episode, I was like, yep, I've been there, I know where this is. And growing up in that environment, even though I'm not into church, that's all around you. And if you have a problem, that's the first thing your grandma tells you. So, oh, you need to go to church. So what did you think about the lack of that, even as a mention, as a resource for her, emotional resource? Was that deliberate, or the writers just didn't think about it, or, I mean, because as a cultural thing, that was kind of missing.
I think that for everything else that they had to get done in this series, but
It's only 6 episodes.
only 6 episodes. Also, I don't think they really had time for a church scene, which is like where they're in church and
Or even a mention of it, not necessarily going, but her mom even.
Because I don't think Riri is necessarily this is about Riri, and she's not a religious person.
Yeah.
So it's like that wouldn't really chime into it.
Well, no, but that's the thing is neither, like, I get that, neither am I, but that's what everyone around me talks about. And so when I say, oh, I'm not interested in that, they just kind of side at me. So that's what I meant. It's like no one even mentioned it at all, not that she would have gone or anything. So I just thought that was kind of a interesting.
I think spirituality was mentioned with her mom and Madeline, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if that is your spirituality and what you're going to focus on, the church wouldn't necessarily be something that would necessarily come up. Because, yeah, Madeline and spirituality, and that was sort of a part of it, but not the religious aspect of this church. And Riri obviously does not seem focused in that area, so I don't know if it would have come up in that.
Yeah, it would, to me, honestly, I'm not a religious person either, and I think because of like the spirituality aspect of it, and I agree, like church is a large part of Black culture, but it, to me, in this instance, because it was focusing on Riri and the spirituality of her mother, for me, it would have potentially felt forced if they tried to like overplay it, because also the way that her mom practiced spirituality is sometimes met with disdain in the Black church. So I could see her not have, so she, like my friend Deborah tells me all the time, she's like, oh, you're not religious, but you're very spiritual. And I feel like that's kind of how her mom is as well. So I feel like if they had tried to force that, it would have felt disjointed. Disingenuous, yes, thank you.
And also her mom's friend was a sorcerer at Carmitage, so there's a point where she's just like,
I wanted to push this statement that was made a second ago about Riri being very prideful. It felt to me when she didn't, the whole point of the reason why she doesn't have resources in this series is because she's prideful, not because they're taken from her, but because she refuses to engage in what she has, in what the school says are the conditions for her to get that access to those resources. And she doesn't do it out of pride, right? They have this whole scene at the beginning where the establishment of the school is saying, if you would just follow the rules, you would be able to have access to all this stuff. And she's like, yeah, but your rules are dumb and they're made by dumb people, right? Which is a very Tony Stark thing to say, but when it comes from Riri, it hits differently, right? And I feel like her putting herself in that position sort of almost as a consequence of her choices makes it is what feels different to me about the difference between her versus Hood's gang, right? Because Hood's gang, we don't know the choices they made to end up there, but we do know the choice that Riri made, and Riri could have gone corporate, and she didn't do it out of what she thought was her holding to what drives her, right? It needed to be done by her rules, not by the school's rules.
But I feel like that's also something that's gonna hit different people differently based on your experiences, your personality, your perspective. Right. Because a lot of times when a place has resources, they get to make the rules. It's like this, one of my favorite lines in The Matrix. They are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys. Right. And that's exactly what this is. And she's like, well, I want to be able to decide what key I use, what door I go through. You know what I mean? And some people are completely fine with playing by the rules and moving through if that's what their ambition is, if that's what they choose to do, that's what they want to do. And some people, so yeah, I feel like it's a combination. It's an element of the pridefulness, like you mentioned before, and it's an element of who gets to make the rules, who decides who has to play by the rules, when they have to play by the rules, when they get to break the rules. Right. How many chances they get again and again when they do break the rules. So it's never just like a black and white thing of, oh, this, then that. I feel like a lot of this is a spectrum, depending on, who's at the table, who's making the rules, who's guarding the doors, who's holding the keys. Depends on what your experience is. If you're that person that's wanting and waiting for those resources, depending on your perspective and what you're being asked to give up, what you're being asked to provide and bring to the table, if those don't always match with your own personal ideals, then you are being forced to make a choice that not everybody else is always forced to make that choice. And if you recognize that and you see that, you may push against that and you may resent that. And I feel like that's some of what has happened with Riri.
If I could just make one follow-up on this. I think the big difference to me is Tony Stark never actually had to make that choice. He could roll in with that attitude, but because he was from a position of infinite resources and normally, he didn't have to make the choice that Riri made. Okay. Like you just said.
Yeah.
I was gonna comment on the church, the question about where the church was in it, but Yvonne said exactly what I was gonna say. They are, when you meet her mother and her mother's circle of friends, that woman's saging the room. Like, right. People that greet you at the door with a sage stick, they might have a relationship with the church, but more often than not, you're in a different kind of spiritual circles. I was like, the church was there, it just was, it was in a different way. But yeah.
I guess we kind of touched on this. You guys touched on this, like maybe to talk about Sam Rhodey, her accessing mental health resources, like what's missing. I guess I just want to know, what do you want for Riri? Like, what do you want next for her? Like, who do you want her to team up with? Who do you want her to meet? Like, what do you want the next chapter for her to look like?
All of the things. Yeah, but some of the things that we've talked about through all of this, I do think to what you were saying before, that this is, I want this to be her tragic origin story, her tragic hero origin story, and I want us to get a chance to see that play out. Like, please stop creating these worlds and these characters and then just shelving them and not actually giving them a chance to breathe. So I feel like if we get so like a lot of people who have flack about the show are talking about the missing pieces. Well, this is where they've laid the foundation. Start filling in those pieces. So we need to see the consequences of her making that deal with Mephisto. We need to see her figuring out, like, okay, how she's gonna now reconnect with this Natalie person who isn't really a real person and what that means. We need to see the other people in her life, you know, pushing back, making her go get help, making her address her pride, and continuing her character arc to come back around full circle to where she's like, okay, she is starting to now use her abilities for a way that is not as selfish, like you were saying, like a lot of things that she's doing is because she has those blinders on. She doesn't understand how selfish they are, but because if she goes through this like tragic hero origin story, like having that realization and then her coming out the other side as a hero, now that you can push into the MCU, and now because we have her backstory, we understand how she got where she is, we understand what she brings to the table. But yeah, I would also love to see her do some more team up with Clown and Slug in the gang.
I'd want to see her, selfishly, just because I've wanted to see this for the last 5 years. I wouldn't mind seeing her with the Young Avengers. I wouldn't mind seeing her with, because I mean they've been teasing Young Avengers for 7 years.
Yeah.
These are going to be the middle age of it. I would love to see her interact with Miss Marvel, with Hawkeye, with anyone else they can get. I mean, I
would love to see her with Shuri again.
Yeah, that would be good
especially
too.
with what's happened with Shuri with Wakanda Forever, and for dealing with the death of her brother, like those two grief. I mean, I think that would be just
another untapped resource that she can use to deal with her grief. That's all around her.
Could you imagine Riri and Kamala, and Kamala's like, girl, what are you doing out the morning? Oh, my mom's gonna make you a plate.
And I really like the idea of that cross-cultural thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, that's one of the things that I'm loving. I'm Hispanic, multiracial, and so I touch base with a lot of different cultures, and I love the idea of Kamala, because with Kamala's show you get to see a lot of the culture there, and I love the idea of bringing in that culture and showing how the different cultures deal with certain things, and showing like there's always a way, and there's always somebody out there that will help you. You know?
Did you
I like that idea.
I was gonna say I definitely want to see the Young Avengers, but I also want to make sure that Riri gets a fully fleshed out story. Mainly because this season was only 6 episodes and it only felt like half a story.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see her have a fully fleshed out story, as opposed to sort of like rushing it into. Well, not rushing it. It's been 7 years. But sort of just going bang into the Young Avengers.
So actually my question was related to that, right? So like, do you think that Mephisto should show up again? Because having him be the villain here, and he's been anticipated in the MCU for a long time, and he was always thought that he was going to be associated with Wanda in some way. Like, if they bring him back in some show or movie, what do you think that would be? Would you be okay with seeing him and like not talking about Riri and leaving that unaddressed, just he'll come up and do something else? Or when you see him again, do you expect also Riri to also show up? And if she does show up as a cameo, you would expect the Mephisto thing to be addressed at all or not?
I was gonna say, I wonder if that's how they're gonna pull in Zelma instead, because she's a magic user, and it felt like they kind of like gave like a slight nod to maybe potentially having like a Strange Academy. So I feel like if Riri does face any consequences, she's not going to be able to handle them. Zelma's going to have to come to the rescue, and then that will be kind of like the next hop into getting more of a story for Zelma. And because like as a secondary character, we laid the foundation for Riri in season 1. Now she's on adventure, more character arc, more development of a story for Zelma, and then also hopefully potentially talking a little bit more about and understanding more about magic and bringing that in, and then maybe can from there bounce off into potentially doing a Strange Academy. I think that would potentially make more sense than trying to have Riri come up against Mephisto.
But I think Riri's going to have to, because she owes Mephisto her soul. Remember, she said that to the Hood and her. He said, nothing you're gonna miss right now. But he's gonna come back for his payment. So he has to interact with her again at some point. And she has to have Zelma help her figure out an end around where she can keep her soul as opposed to Mephisto collecting it.
I was gonna say, I think that he would probably show back up in whatever the sequel to Agatha All Along is. I think he will be in there some way in which to bring the brother back. But yeah, I think you have Riri still, like you said, Riri still owes him the soul, so he has to pop back up in that story somehow. I just don't know how they're gonna work it all together. Riri and Wiccan at some point interconnect, I suppose. But also, I lost my train of thought, so never mind.
So I'm going to say one more thing. As the moderator, I have the privilege of ending things. So I'm going to make one statement, and it's your statement about the pride and not taking and being in the system. And I would say that, and I've said this to you privately, so now I'm saying it in public. Thank you for this. It has not benefited anybody black in the MCU to take money from anybody else.
That's right.
So I just don't know. I mean, it's interesting to say that she should have continued to do this. And I'm not saying MIT is the government, but let's look how it's gone. Like, either you compromise seriously and take the money, or you and still get screwed up, or you don't compromise and don't have resources. Like, I don't see the historical value that we've seen thus far play out positively. Why would she do that?
Right. She doesn't know.
But we know. I'm just saying, we know. So it's like, because at the end I was like, I don't know if you want to make that choice, girl. I'm not sure, but they might not, whatever. So we are.
MIT's got to be better than Mephisto, though.
How long has it been since you worked in college, my guy? Okay, I'm just saying. So 30 seconds. Pip out.
Okay.
Good.
You can find our group online if you go to linktree.com/colorofandom. All of links to all of our socials are there. We do a lot of stuff on Discord, so even if you're not based in North Carolina, you can still participate in a lot of the online stuff that our wonderful administrator Deborah organizes.
You can find me at fandomhopper.com. You can find us wherever you get podcasts. You can find us on YouTube, and you can find me at MC1371 on TikTok, and my name everywhere else.
I'm on all socials at MovieYM. I don't post a lot about anything in particular. Right now I'm posting about bad reality TV. So if you want to know me, that's where you can find me.
Thanks to everyone. Appreciate the conversation. Appreciate keeping everything civil and on the up and up. I love it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Obligatory